Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Liverpool. Well, it was a tough old afternoon/evening at Craven Cottage. It's a stadium we haven't been to for a couple of seasons, with obviously Fulham being down in the Championship. But a stadium which we've kind of had a bit of mixed fortunes. Like there were some really good memories, I remember. Like a Maxi Rodriguez hat-trick, that Steven Gerrard ball through to Daniel Sturridge. Great memories of this ground. But today... just wasn't really our day. I think there's a couple of things that I can put my finger on, which I'll attempt to do over the course of this episode, but there was a couple of things that just didn't seem right about the way we played or the way we approached the game or whatever. But anyway, before I jump into kind of analysing our failings in the game, I think Fulham were set out in a very structured way, and as you would expect, you know, their season hasn't started off the best or how they would like, and they're already looking, you know, people are already writing them off as, are they the team that's going to go down after just one season? And so they had a chance against the Premier League champions to really prove a point, not only to the rest of the Premier League, but to themselves as well, that they belong in this league, they deserve to be in this league. And I think that the performance that Fulham put out today was really kind of a personification of that. A personification and justification to themselves that we belong here and we can actually do really well. And I think they did really well. Like we were poor, we were far off our best, but they were really good, very well structured, very well disciplined. There's been a bit of criticism about Scott Parker this season so far, but fair play to him. He set out a very structured team. His team were disciplined. And they got the result for that. Before the game, obviously, we also had the... it feels like every episode now we getting a piece of news like this, but it was the news that Diego Jota picked up an injury very shortly before being substituted against Midtjylland in the week, which is going to leave him out for 6 to 8 weeks. Obviously, going into the busy Christmas period like we are, that is not ideal. I think the only saving grace is actually this year that the fixture congestion probably been more before Christmas than it is during Christmas, with no kind of EFL Cup and then we know who we're playing in the FA Cup early January, and there's the games over Christmas maybe don't seem as stacked up as maybe they did before. Maybe that's just not placebo effect. Maybe that's just my kind of analysis of it, but from looking at how far the games are, it looks like they're a little bit separated out, so hopefully that helps in terms of recuperation of the players, the rest, the training, etc. But all of that stuff said, the Champions League game we had in midweek, all that type of stuff, who we rested, none of that is an excuse for how poor we were in the first half. We just couldn't do anything. It was very strange. It was like we weren't even playing really simple passes well, really simple passes between the centre backs even and out to the full backs. Even they weren't working, and Gini was losing the ball, Hendo was losing the ball, even Trent was losing the ball and just didn't look very confident. It was very strange. It seemed like Klopp had obviously given the majority of the team that played a rest against Midtjylland, but it almost felt like they were lethargic as a result of that rest rather than energized. And it's kind of an interesting one that there's obviously the myth, not a myth, but there's always the thinking that if you rest players, that helps them energize, and when they come into the next game, that means they're going to have loads more energy and they're going to be pumped up and they'll be able to win. However, there's the opposing view to that is actually by taking people out of the firing line, which they've been playing in so regularly, you kind of mess with their routine, their everything, and so actually it becomes even more difficult when you come back into it to get back into your form, get back into that rhythm and routine that maybe you were in. And I think maybe this was a good example of that being played out in real life. No one looked interested. We were giving the ball away, nothing was happening. And that's as much as it is a discredit to ourselves, I think it's as much as a credit to Fulham. They were very strong in their kind of banks of defence and midfield. I weren't really playing with a striker or strikers. Cavallero and Lookman were the only ones really looking to break forward, and Cordova Reed on the right-hand side as well. But other than that, they were all kind of just all firmly behind the ball, letting us have the ball in our half, and knowing that we couldn't really do anything. They were defending really deep. We couldn't play those balls in over the top. We didn't have those creative midfielders that could play a cute pass. And so honestly, they were very comfortable. And actually, they were the ones who in the first half had those couple of chances where, they broke away really well. They had those couple of chances, forced Alisson into a couple of very, very good saves. Cavallero with 2 particular chances in the first half that Alisson did really well to save. Good to see him back as well from his injury as well. Not sure how he got injured, but he needs to be in the team now. He can't be getting injured. We need to keep him in the team. But yeah, Fulham definitely did look more dangerous in the first half from their breakaway attempts, and they did get the goal. But before that, there was obviously a silly VAR decision that happened with Fabinho, and it was one of those ridiculous ones where they say VAR isn't there to re-referee. The referee saw it, completely ignored it, gave a corner, move on, but VAR then wanted to have a look and re-referee the decision that the on-field referee had made. Fortunately for us, the referee went to the side monitor, saw the replays, and decided that actually it wasn't a penalty, which exactly what he agreed in the first place. But VAR just seemed to be going back against their own rules left, right and centre, and it's just very, very confusing. But after all of that drama, Fulham did get a goal it was kind of the resulting of a corner. It was kind of cleared by Matip, and it was one of those things where you could tell all of the Liverpool players got very excited. We won the first header, it fell to a Liverpool player, and you could see everybody's eyes light up. It's been such a difficult game to break them down. Everyone's eyes lit up with, we can break away here, we can play a through ball in, get Salah, Mane going. But we were so kind of almost fixated on that we forgot to get the ball out to them and start that counter attack. And they won the ball back, played it over to Cordova-Reid, who kind of just kept his head down and just smashed it in the corner. It was a fantastic strike, fair play. It was a really, really good goal. Alisson had no chance, but it was just kind of I think it was born out of the frustration of the game that as soon as we had the chance of possibly a breakaway goal, everyone's kind of eyes lit up, and they kind of almost got ahead of themselves, thinking about how we were going to be 50 yards up the pitch rather than worrying about this current situation with where the ball was, where the Fulham players were. And yeah, after that goal, you could see Klopp on the sideline just shouting like, "Wake up, wake up!" And yeah, very much, as I said at the beginning, was a lethargic performance up until that goal. I think after that we got a bit better, and I think we got a bit better because Trent and Robertson in particular pushed really high, but also more importantly really wide, which forced their kind of defence out. And sometimes they didn't want to go out and they wanted to stay really compact, which meant Trent in particular, Robbo maybe not so much, but Trent in particular had a lot of the space, which allowed him to get some balls into the cross, get those fizzed crosses in. And we kind of growing a little bit into the game at the end of the first half, but we were still down and we went into the half-time 1-0 down. And so the pressure was all on us in the second half. And as the second half started, everyone kind of knew how the game was going to go. We were going to have a lot of the ball. Fulham were going to sit back and try and hold on to what they had. We did make a substitution at half-time, and that was to bring off Joel Matip and bring on Takumi Minamino, which at first I thought, interesting substitution. Maybe we'll go 2 in midfield and just play 4 up front. With Salah, Firmino, Mane and Minamino as well. But it transpired, well, at least through commentary, that Matip had a bit of a back problem, so they're probably just taking a precaution there and bringing him off. But hopefully he doesn't miss the Tottenham game, because we really can't do with any more centre-backs that are injured, because that, we just don't have the people to facilitate more injuries. But yeah, as I said, the second half really kind of started at least how we would have expected it to. It was a game where, particularly in the second half, where our midfield just dominated the game. I've spoken a lot about. I feel like I've spoken a lot about Gini Wijnaldum this season, and I really do like him. I think he's brought so much to the team. His fantastic goal last weekend, but a game like this where the team are going to play 10, 11 men behind the ball, it just isn't a Gini Wijnaldum game. I think one of the in this case we just didn't have a chance. And I'll talk a bit more about it in the shout out to Klopp at the end, because I think it's more about the midfield. But I think in a game like this where the team are just going to sit behind the ball, Gini is not that player that's going to break them down. He's a worker, a grinder in midfield, help us win the ball back, pass the ball on to those more creative midfielders. And I think this is those types of games, and against opposition like this, they're just not Gini friendly games. I call them Gini friendly games. But we kept passing sideways. We kept our hopes up, and we were patient, and we were kind of passing the ball around, making some chances. Henderson had a fantastic chance, played through a little nice ball by Bobby Firmino. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but, a fantastic save from Areola. And, that kind of pass there from Firmino was the kind of pass we saw Shaqiri playing a couple of weeks ago. Not really sure what's happened to Shaqiri again. I think he picked up a little knock, but Klopp and Liverpool are just very, very coy with information about these types of injuries. And, I think we could have done with a player like him. In the second half, I think Mane, from my perspective at least, was one of the only players from our team that really wanted to take the game to Fulham. Taking on some players, drifting past a few players, dribbling past them. He was successful on a couple of occasions, but not really any end product. Be it a shot on goal or kind of really decisive cross that let Firmino or Salah knock a ball in. But he was the one that I really want to commend, because I think in the second half in particular, he kind of wanted to take the game by the scruff of the neck. We talk about the great players and what they do in those situations when their team is either losing or things aren't working for their team. They take the game by the scruff of the neck, and they try and push forward as much as they can to try and get the result for their team. We did manage to equalise with a penalty. It was a free kick that unfortunately Trent had been taken off for, which I think was clever, given he played, I think, 90 minutes in the week, just coming back from injury. We've got the big game against Tottenham on the week, which he'll probably play 90 minutes in, and he'll have a very, very tough game against Son. But Wijnaldum ended up taking the free kick, and it was straight into the wall, and Kamara put his hands up. I wouldn't say his arms weren't too far extended outside of his body shape or body line, as they call it, but I think it was far enough that the referee kind of saw that it was impeding the ball going through, and that's exactly what it was doing, and it was a penalty. And finally, you could feel like a bit of the release of kind of finally something happened and worked our way. It was, and you know what? We were actually very, very lucky to score it. Mo Salah was not one of Mo Salah's best penalties. Areola, I feel like, just got a bit confused about which way he wanted to dive, which probably ended up confusing him more than anything else. It was kind of straight down the middle, but Salah scored. Salah came off as well, and Divock came on for the last 10 minutes or so. Divock couldn't really fashion any chances, but it was going to be very, very tough for him anyway. Coming on at the end of the game with a defence that were very, very structured, very, very strong, and kind of just sat deep. So it was always going to be difficult for him anyway. We caused a couple of problems after that. Curtis Jones had a great chance where he dribbled past a couple of players. If he could have placed it in the corner, it would have been a fantastic goal, and we would have escaped Craven Cottage with all 3 points. But that wasn't to be the case, and the game did finish 1-1. We kept pressing all the way to the last minute, but we just couldn't force our luck, and so we had to settle with a point in the end, which, given Spurs' draw as well, wasn't the end of the world. It maybe gave us a chance, give us that kind of window of opportunity to maybe capitalise, but it's not the end of the world. And obviously we've got that huge game on Wednesday now against Tottenham, which should be a very, very tough game. It was a big game anyway, but given we both draw, we're both on the same amount of points, it should be a very, very good game. Now I'm going to touch on the man of the match, who for me, there wasn't really anyone on the Liverpool side. Pretty much everything I've talked about in this episode was about how we were lethargic, not out of the races, etc. But the only real person who was back from injury today who did really, really well, and honestly in the first half kept us in the game, and that was Alisson. It was great to see Kelleher over the past couple of games. He's been really fantastic. He made some fantastic saves in the Champions League and the Premier League also. But it was great to see Alisson back, and he really did keep us in the game. And if we had gone 2 or maybe even 3 down in the first half, that could have completely knocked us, and I could have foreseen a possible another Aston Villa type score. But he kept us in the game and was absolutely fantastic. And then finally, on the shout out to Klopp, and I touched on this a little earlier, and it's thinking about the composition of the midfield in these games where we play against teams that we know will sit back behind the ball, where they haven't got the fastest team, or the teams in the lower part of the table where they're just trying to maybe nick a point, nick a goal and sit behind it. I think we just have to think about, 1, the personnel, but 2, kind of the structure. Henderson, maybe we play him further up. For example, he can get those crosses into the box. Genie, how do we play him? What are the games that may make sense for Genie to play in? Ox now coming back is huge, about what games he plays in. Just thinking more about that composition based on the opposition rather than just playing kind of the same 3 midfielders. But that's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.